So, you jumped into spiritual awakening, didn't you? Picturing all that serenity, endless peace, maybe even a life of constant bliss. But instead, you found yourself in a wild, disorienting freefall, like the very ground beneath your feet is just cracking open. Yeah, they don't always tell you that sometimes the first real step towards the light feels an awful lot like stepping straight into an abyss. This isn't always a gentle unfolding. For many, it's an earthquake. Hey there, if those first few words really hit home, if you're nodding along, maybe feeling that shiver of recognition, then you're absolutely in the right place. We're here today to talk about one of the most profound, yet often terrifyingly misunderstood, phases of spiritual awakening: ego death. It's that part of the journey that's usually whispered about in hushed tones, if it gets mentioned at all in most spiritual circles. So many guides and gurus might paint awakening as this serene climb towards a sunlit peak, a slow, beautiful unfurling of your inner lotus. And yes, there are definitely moments of deep peace, connection, and insight that feel exactly like that. But what about the part where the mountain crumbles? What about when the lotus feels like it's being ripped out by the roots before it can even bloom? What about that raw, visceral, and utterly disorienting experience of watching your sense of self, everything you thought you were, begin to just dissolve? This is the shocking stage we're exploring today. Many seekers, maybe you're one of them, step onto the spiritual path with the best intentions. You're looking for something more than the everyday, more than just material stuff. You're searching for truth, for purpose, for a connection to something bigger than yourself. You might have devoured the books, gone to the workshops, started a meditation practice, all chasing that peace and enlightenment you've heard about. And those first steps might have even felt pretty good. A new sense of calm, little moments of clarity, that feeling of being on a right path. But then something shifts. The ground gets wobbly. Instead of feeling more whole, you might start to feel like you're fragmenting. Instead of peace, you could run smack into a storm of anxiety, confusion, and a deep, unsettling fear. The very identity you've spent a lifetime building, your beliefs, your personality, your roles, your stories about who you are, starts to feel, well, unreal. This isn't what was promised in the glossy brochures of spiritual enlightenment, is it? This is the ego's desperate fight for survival. And it can honestly feel like you're losing your mind. In this video, we're going to pull back the curtain on this intense and often brutal phase. We're not here to offer you cliches or easy answers. We're here to explore the raw truth of ego struggles and the disorienting crises that can mark the initial and sometimes recurring stages of a genuine spiritual awakening. We'll try to uncover why this happens, what ego death truly signifies, not as some annihilation to be scared of, but as a profound and necessary transformation. And super importantly, we'll look into the powerful signs that come with this process, signs that can help you understand that you're not broken, you're not going crazy, but you are in fact in the midst of a powerful, even if tumultuous, rebirth. If you've ever felt lost in the darkness of your spiritual journey, wondering if you took a wrong turn, or if this whole awakening thing is some kind of cruel joke, this is for you. We're going to validate those experiences and offer a way to understand what might be the most challenging, yet ultimately liberating passage of your life. So, take a deep breath. You're not alone in this. Let's explore the shocking, unvarnished truth about ego death. Part 1. The unvarnished truth of ego struggles. Let's be brutally honest, shall we? The term spiritual awakening often brings up images of blissful smiles, serene meditation poses, and a gentle, harmonious expansion of consciousness. We see influencers radiating pure bliss, gurus talking about effortless enlightenment, and an endless stream of quotes promising peace and love. This idyllic picture is super compelling. It's what draws many of us in. But it's an incomplete picture. It's like showing only the summit of a huge, treacherous mountain range, without mentioning the sheer cliffs, the blinding blizzards, and the bone-deep exhaustion of the climb. For a lot of people, the path to deeper awareness isn't paved with rose petals. but with the jagged shards of their old selves. The spiritual calling often starts subtly, a deep feeling of dissatisfaction, a yearning for something more, a questioning of the life you've built. This initial stirring is often manageable, even a bit exciting, but then often a catalyst hits. This isn't always a gentle nudge. It could be a full-blown crisis, losing a loved one, a career collapsing, a health scare, a dark night of the soul that seems to swoop in without warning. It's something that shakes your world to its absolute core, forcing you to face the limits of your old beliefs and how fragile everything you thought was solid actually is. This is often where the raw truth of ego struggles starts to show itself, and it's rarely a pretty sight. Imagine your ego, your sense of I, as this fortress you've meticulously built. It's constructed from every single experience you've ever had, every label you've ever accepted, every story you've ever told yourself about who you are, what you're capable of, what scares you, what you want. This fortress has had a purpose. It's helped you navigate the world, protect yourself, achieve things, and feel a sense of stable identity. It's your personality, your job, your relationships, your wins, your losses, all of it, brick by carefully laid brick. Now, imagine spiritual awakening in its raw, untamed form as an earthquake, a flood, and a wildfire all rolled into one, and it's aimed right at this fortress. The very foundations start to tremble. Cracks appear in walls you thought were impenetrable. The ego, this sense of a separate, distinct self, realizes it's under attack, and its main goal is survival. It will fight, and trust me, it will fight dirty. This is where that shocking stage they don't warn you about really kicks in. It's not just a bit of discomfort. It can be a period of deep disorientation and intense suffering. You might go through a bewildering array of psychological and emotional storms. Anxiety can become your constant shadow, a gnawing fear that something is terribly wrong, that you're losing control or even going insane. This isn't just everyday worry. It can be a deep, existential dread that seeps into everything. The world around you, things that once felt familiar and safe, might suddenly seem alien, strange, or even hostile. Your own thoughts can feel foreign, intrusive, or overwhelmingly negative. Depression, too, often tags along for this ride. Not just sadness, but a heavy, crushing weight of despair, a feeling of utter meaninglessness. Things that used to bring you joy might feel pointless and empty. You might feel this profound disconnection from others, from your old life, even from yourself. It can feel like you're watching your life from behind a thick wall of glass, just a spectator to your own existence. This deep sense of alienation can be incredibly isolating. Your identity, that fortress you built so carefully, starts to crumble. The roles you played, the good child, the successful professional, the loyal friend, the spiritual seeker, suddenly feel like ill-fitting costumes. You look in the mirror and don't quite recognize the person staring back. The beliefs that once defined your reality, about yourself, about the world, about how things should be, are all thrown into question, leaving you in this terrifying void of uncertainty. This isn't a gentle questioning. It's often a violent dismantling. Who are you if you're not your job title? Who are you if you're not your past traumas or successes? Who are you if the stories you've told yourself are just, well, stories? This loss of a fixed self can be utterly terrifying. It feels like dying because in a very real sense, a part of you is dying. This internal chaos often spills over into your external world. Relationships that were once solid might suddenly feel strained or completely irrelevant. As your inner world shifts so dramatically, you might find you no longer click with the people or situations you once did. Friends and family may not get what you're going through, and their attempts to fix you or bring you back to your old self can feel invalidating and make you feel even more alone. You might find yourself pulling away, needing huge amounts of solitude just to handle the intensity of what's going on inside. One of the sneakiest parts of this stage is feeling like you're uniquely broken or that you've somehow failed at this whole spiritual awakening thing. You see others seemingly gliding along, and you wonder, what's wrong with me? Why is this so hard? I must be doing it wrong. This self-blame is often the ego's last-ditch effort to stay in control, to create a story around the chaos. The ego's resistance isn't just a passive sulk. It's an active, often aggressive, campaign to get back in charge. It will dredge up old fears, past traumas, and deep-seated insecurities with a vengeance. You might find yourself battling patterns of thought and behavior you thought you dealt with ages ago. It's as if all your hidden, shadow parts are brought out into the glaring, uncomfortable light, demanding to be seen and dealt with. This can show up as intense emotional swings. One moment you might feel a flicker of peace or insight, and the next you're plunged back into despair or rage. Physical symptoms are also pretty common during this turbulent time. Changes in sleep patterns, can't sleep, or need way too much sleep happen a lot. You might experience unexplained aches and pains, digestive issues, or a profound sense of fatigue that no amount of rest seems to fix. Your energy levels can go up and down like a yo-yo. Some people describe feeling an intense, buzzing, or vibrational energy in their body, while others feel leaden and heavy. These physical signs are often the body's way of processing the intense, energetic, and psychological shifts that are happening. Think about the caterpillar turning into a butterfly. We love the butterfly, but we rarely think about the messy reality of the chrysalis. Inside that casing, the caterpillar doesn't just magically sprout wings. It dissolves. It literally turns into a kind of living goo. It's a complete breakdown of its old form before the imaginal cells, the blueprints for the butterfly, can start to rebuild it into something entirely new. This messy, disorienting, liquefying stage is a lot like what the ego experiences. It's a necessary destruction before a truer, more authentic self can emerge. And why is this process so intense? Well, psychologically, the ego is deeply invested in its own story. It has spent a lifetime building defenses, attachments, and a sense of predictability. When spiritual awakening starts to take these structures apart, the ego sees it as a threat to its very existence, and it reacts with fear and resistance. It clings to what it knows, even if what it knows is limiting or painful, because the unknown feels like annihilation. Spiritually, this dismantling is seen as clearing away illusions. The ego, with its focus on separation, limitation, and personal history, hides the deeper truth of our interconnectedness and our boundless nature. For the soul to awaken more fully, the ego's grip has to loosen. This isn't about destroying the ego, so you become a non-functional person. It's about kicking it off its throne as the absolute ruler of your consciousness and integrating it as a functional part of a much larger, more expansive self. The dark night of the soul, a term often used for these intense periods, is exactly this: a journey through the shadows of your own mind, a confrontation with the emptiness that the ego has tried so hard to avoid. It's a time when old support systems, both inside and out, seem to fall away, leaving you feeling utterly alone and adrift in a sea of uncertainty. But it is in this very darkness, this very emptiness, that the possibility for profound transformation lies. It's the shocking stage, the one they don't usually show in the highlight reel of spiritual awakening, because it's messy, it's painful, and it requires a level of surrender that the ego finds absolutely terrifying. Yet, it is often the fiery furnace in which true spiritual maturity is forged. Understanding these struggles, recognizing them not as a detour from the path, but as an essential part of it, is the first step towards navigating them with a little more grace and a lot less self-blame. Part 2. Understanding ego death and its powerful signs. If Part 1 felt like a deep dive into the chaos, then this section is about finding the map, or at least a compass, to help you navigate that territory. The term ego death itself can sound pretty scary, like you're going to be completely wiped out. And in a way, it is an annihilation, but not of you, not of your essential being. It's the dissolution of the false self, the identity you've constructed, the mask you've worn, maybe for so long you've forgotten it was even a mask. Understanding ego death isn't about bracing for oblivion, but about recognizing a profound, though often turbulent, rite of passage. So what is ego death, really? At its heart, ego death, or ego dissolution, is a transformative experience where your usual sense of a separate, individual self temporarily, or sometimes more permanently, fades or disappears. It's a blurring of the lines you normally see between me and not me, between yourself and the rest of the world. This isn't just an idea you think about. It's a deeply felt, experiential shift in your consciousness. The I that's usually the center of your universe, the narrator of your life story, steps back or fades into the background, revealing a much vaster, more interconnected reality. Think of it this way. Your ego is like a character in a play, absolutely convinced it is the entire play. Ego death is the moment that character realizes it's part of a much bigger production, with a huge stage, an unseen director, and a story far grander than its own limited view could ever have imagined. Initially, this can be disorienting, even frightening for the character. Where are its lines? What's its role now? But it also opens up the possibility of experiencing the entire play, not just its tiny part. This process isn't about becoming a zombie or losing your personality completely. A healthy ego is actually necessary to function in the world. Instead, ego death is about transcending the ego's tyranny, its illusion of being the ultimate reality. It's realizing that you are more than your thoughts, your emotions, your history, your roles. You're the awareness in which all of these things appear and disappear. This profound shift doesn't usually happen without leaving some very distinct footprints. Recognizing these signs can be incredibly validating and can help you understand that what feels like a breakdown might actually be a breakthrough. Let's look at some of the powerful and often shocking signs that you might be experiencing ego death. A profound loss of identity and old certainties. This is probably the biggest hallmark of ego death. Who you thought you were starts to unravel. Your career, your achievements, your social status, your carefully crafted personality. All these things that once defined you might suddenly feel hollow or meaningless. You might look at your life and think, this isn't me. This isn't what I want. Beliefs you held as absolute truths can crumble, leaving you in a state of profound questioning about, well, everything. This isn't just intellectual doubt. It's a gut feeling of your foundations dissolving. You might feel like a stranger in your own life, adrift without an anchor. While terrifying, this is the slate being wiped clean, making space for a more authentic self to emerge. Intense existential questioning and a search for deeper meaning. The why questions become relentless. Why am I here? What is the purpose of life? What is real? Superficial answers just don't cut it anymore. There's a burning desire for truth, for something authentic and lasting beyond the fleeting concerns of the ego. This isn't just casual curiosity. It can feel like a desperate hunger for meaning in a world that suddenly seems to lack it. This deep questioning is your soul calling you to look beyond the ego's limited answers. Feelings of detachment and disconnection. The void you might feel profoundly disconnected from the world, from others, even from your own emotions and thoughts. This isn't necessarily a cold, uncaring detachment, but more like watching life from a distance. It can feel like you're in a void, an empty space where your old self used to be. This emptiness can be incredibly uncomfortable for the ego, which loves content and definition. However, this void is also the space of pure potential, the no-thingness from which all things arise. It's the fertile ground for a new, more expansive consciousness, heightened sensitivity and empathy, sometimes overwhelmingly. So as the ego's boundaries thin out, you might find yourself becoming extraordinarily sensitive to the emotions and energies of others and to the suffering in the world. This could be overwhelming. You might feel others' pain as if it were your own. News reports, scenes of injustice, or even crowded places can become unbearable. While challenging, this heightened empathy is a sign that your heart is opening beyond the ego's self-centered worries. It's an expansion of compassion, a direct experience of our interconnectedness. A sense of unreality or dreamlike states, depersonalization/derealization, the world might start to feel unreal, like you're living in a dream or a movie. Your own actions, thoughts, and feelings might seem distant or not entirely your own, depersonalization. Familiar surroundings may look strange or foreign, derealization. While these can be symptoms of psychological distress and should definitely be monitored, in the context of spiritual awakening and ego death, they can also mean the ego's grip on a fixed, solid perception of reality is loosening. It's the mind starting to glimpse the illusory nature of the world we've constructed. Confrontation with your shadow self. Ego death often involves a painful run-in with the parts of yourself you've denied, repressed, or judged, your shadow. Old traumas, deep-seated fears, negative patterns, and uncomfortable truths about yourself may surface with an undeniable intensity. This can feel like all your demons are being let out of the closet at once. The ego has worked hard to keep these aspects hidden, but true liberation requires bringing them into the light of awareness for healing and integration. This is a courageous confrontation and a necessary one. Profound moments of surrender and letting go. At some point, often after intense struggle and resistance, moments of deep surrender may happen. You might find yourself simply letting go of the fight, of the need to control, of the attachment to a particular outcome or identity. This surrender isn't giving up in a defeated sense. It's a yielding to a larger process, a trust in something beyond the ego's understanding. These moments can bring an unexpected sense of peace or relief, even in the middle of the chaos. It's the ego momentarily loosening its grip. Experiences of oneness and interconnectedness. Amidst all the dissolution and confusion, you may have fleeting or even sustained experiences of profound interconnectedness. For a moment, the illusion of separation drops away, and you feel a deep sense of unity with all of life, with nature, with the universe, or with a divine presence. These mystical experiences can be incredibly powerful and transformative, offering a glimpse of the reality that lies beyond the ego. They're a taste of your true nature, loss of fear of death, or a radical shift in perspective about it, as the ego, which is fundamentally identified with the body and its survival, begins to dissolve. Your relationship with death may change dramatically. The intense fear of personal annihilation can lessen, replaced by a sense of being part of an eternal flow of existence. You might realize that what you truly are isn't confined to this physical form or this single lifetime. This isn't a morbid obsession, but a liberating understanding that life and death are two sides of the same coin. A decreased interest in materialistic pursuits and superficialities, the things that once seemed so important, climbing the career ladder, accumulating possessions, seeking external validation, may lose their appeal. There's a growing sense that these things are ultimately unfulfilling. This isn't about rejecting the world, but about seeing through the ego's constant craving for more. Your priorities start to shift towards inner peace, authenticity, meaningful connection, and spiritual growth. Feeling as though you're losing control or have lost it. During ego death, that familiar feeling of being in command of your thoughts, emotions, and even bodily sensations can just slip away. This can be profoundly frightening, as the ego equates control with safety and its very existence. Yet, paradoxically, this perceived loss of control can also be liberating. It represents a surrender to a larger, deeper intelligence or flow. It's the ego's white-knuckled grip being loosened, allowing for an opening to experiences beyond its carefully managed reality. Transcendence of time and space. The ordinary, linear perception of time can distort or even dissolve. Past, present, and future might feel like they're merging into a single, timeless now. Similarly, your sense of being located in a specific point in space can expand, leading to feelings of boundlessness or being everywhere at once. This can be disorienting, but is a classic feature of mystical experiences linked with ego dissolution. Recognizing these signs is so important. It transforms the narrative from "I'm falling apart" to "I'm shedding what is no longer true." It shifts the experience from one of pure victimhood to one of profound, albeit challenging, transformation. These signs aren't a checklist for mental illness, but rather waymarkers on a journey of deep spiritual unfolding. They indicate that the ego's tight hold on your consciousness is loosening, allowing for something far more vast and authentic to emerge. This solution part isn't about fixing ego death, but understanding its purpose and its signs, so you can meet this powerful process with awareness rather than just fear. It's about realizing that this shocking stage is, in fact, a sacred demolition, clearing the ground for a truer temple to be built. Part 3. Navigating the transformation. Understanding the signs and the nature of ego death is one thing. Actually living through it is another beast entirely. Navigating this intense period takes courage, patience, and a willingness to embrace the unknown. There's no magic formula to make it painless or quick, as much as our ego might wish for one. However, there are perspectives and gentle practices that can help you move through this transformative storm with a little more grace and self-compassion. First and foremost, radical acceptance is absolutely key. This means acknowledging what's happening without judging it, and without trying to immediately fix it or run away from it. The ego's natural reaction is to resist anything uncomfortable or unfamiliar. It'll label the experience as bad, wrong, or scary, and then try to strategize its way out. But in the context of ego death, resistance really is futile. In fact, it often makes the suffering worse. Acceptance doesn't mean you have to like what's happening, but it means you stop fighting reality. Imagine you're caught in a strong ocean current. Thrashing against it will only exhaust you and pull you under. Acceptance is like choosing to float, to save your energy, and to trust that the current, however powerful, is taking you somewhere. Allow the feelings, the fear, the grief, the confusion, the emptiness to just be there. Observe them without immediately becoming them. This creates a little space, a little breathing room. Practice self-compassion relentlessly. Seriously, this is not a time for self-criticism or for pushing yourself to get over it. You're undergoing a profound internal restructuring, a kind of psychic surgery without anesthesia. Treat yourself with the same kindness, patience, and understanding you'd offer a deeply loved friend who is going through an incredibly tough time. Acknowledge your pain. Validate your struggles. Remind yourself that you are not failing. You are transforming. The ego can be a harsh inner critic, especially when it feels threatened. Counter that voice with deliberate, gentle compassion. Seek understanding, not necessarily immediate solutions. Instead of asking, "How do I stop this?" try asking, "What is this trying to show me? What is being shed? What is wanting to emerge?" This shifts your perspective from feeling like a victim to being an active, curious participant in your own unfolding. Read about spiritual awakening, ego death, and the dark night of the soul from sources you trust. Hearing that others have walked similar paths and come out transformed can be incredibly reassuring and can help normalize your experience. Grounding practices become essential lifelines during this disorienting time. When your inner world feels chaotic and your sense of self is dissolving, connecting with the physical world can provide some stability. Spend time in nature. Walk barefoot on the earth if you can. Engage your senses. Notice the sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and textures around you. Simple physical activities like walking, stretching, yoga, or even household chores done mindfully can help bring you back into your body and into the present moment. Breath work, just focusing on the simple rhythm of your breath, can calm your nervous system and anchor you when you feel overwhelmed. Mindfulness and observation are powerful tools. Learn to observe your thoughts and emotions without getting swept away by them. Recognize that thoughts are just thoughts, not necessarily facts, and emotions are energy passing through you. The ego will try to weave compelling stories around these thoughts and feelings, but you don't have to buy into every story. Meditation, even for just a few minutes a day, can help you cultivate this observer consciousness. This is the part of you that is aware of the ego, and therefore is not the ego. Simplify your life where you can. During periods of intense inner transformation, your ability to deal with external demands and complexities might be weighed down. It's okay to say no to extra commitments, to reduce social obligations, and to create more space for rest and looking inward. This isn't being selfish. It's honoring the profound inner work that's taking place. The energy that was once directed outwards to maintain the ego's structures is now needed for this internal dismantling and rebuilding process. Be mindful of spiritual bypassing. This is a common trap where spiritual ideas or practices are used to avoid dealing with unresolved emotional issues, psychological wounds, or uncomfortable truths. It's tempting to try and prematurely transcend the difficult emotions by papering over them with spiritual platitudes like, "It's all an illusion," or "just be positive." True spiritual growth involves facing and integrating your shadow, not pretending it doesn't exist. Allow yourself to be human, to feel the full spectrum of your experience, even the messy and painful parts. Consider seeking support, but choose wisely. Talking to a therapist, spiritual mentor, or a trusted friend who understands or is open to understanding these kinds of transformative experiences can be invaluable. However, it's really important to find someone who won't simply try to tell you you're ill or broken, or try to force you back into an old mold. Look for someone who can hold space for your process with compassion and wisdom, someone who recognizes the spiritual dimension of what you're going through. A good therapist familiar with transpersonal psychology or spiritual emergence could be particularly helpful. Journaling or creative expression can be powerful outlets for processing the intense emotions and insights that come up. Writing, drawing, painting, music, any form of creative expression can help you give voice to what feels wordless and make sense of what seems senseless. It's a way to externalize the inner turmoil and gain some perspective. Trust the process, even when it makes absolutely no sense. This is perhaps the hardest part, especially when you're in the depths of confusion and fear. The ego wants certainty and control, and this process offers neither. It requires a leap of faith, a surrender to a wisdom that is deeper than your conscious mind. Remind yourself that countless others have navigated these waters and have come through to a place of greater peace, freedom, and authenticity. This shocking stage is not the final destination, it is a passage. Remember that integration takes time. Ego death isn't a one-time event that you get through and then suddenly you're enlightened. It's often a process with multiple layers and stages of shedding and unbecoming. After intense periods of dissolution, there needs to be a period of integration where the insights and shifts are woven into the fabric of your daily life. Be patient with yourself during this phase. You are, in essence, learning to live in a new way from a new center of awareness. The journey through ego death isn't about destroying the ego, but about transforming your relationship to it. It's about realizing that the ego is a tool, a valuable function of consciousness, but it is not the totality of who you are. The pain and disorientation arise largely from the ego's resistance to this change in status, its fear of losing its perceived top-dog position. By navigating this transformation with awareness, acceptance, and self-compassion, you allow for the emergence of a more authentic, expansive, and liberated self. A self that isn't defined by fear and limitation, but by love, wisdom, and a deep connection to the mystery of existence. The old structures must crumble for something far more magnificent to be revealed. We've journeyed through some pretty challenging territory today, haven't we? We've explored the often unspoken, unvarnished truth about ego death, the shocking, disorienting, yet profoundly transformative stage of spiritual awakening. We've looked at how the initial search for peace can lead us into an unexpected fire, where the very foundations of our identity are shaken. We've acknowledged the intense struggles, the fear, the confusion, that feeling of falling apart that so many experience but few openly talk about. But more importantly, we've aimed to shed some light on the meaning behind all this chaos. Ego death isn't some cosmic mistake or a sign that you've gone off track. It's a sacred demolition, a necessary dismantling of what's false to make way for what's true. The powerful signs we talked about, the loss of old certainties, the deep existential questions, the heightened empathy, the confrontation with the shadow, those moments of surrender and oneness. These are not symptoms of madness, but markers on a profound journey of unbecoming and becoming. They are proof that a deeper intelligence is at work, guiding you towards a more authentic and expansive way of being, even if the path feels like it's through fire. Navigating this transformation, as we've discussed, asks for immense courage, deep self-compassion, and a willingness to surrender to a process that often makes no logical sense. It's about learning to float in the current rather than fighting it, to observe the storm from a place of inner stillness, and to trust that even in the deepest darkness, a new dawn is getting ready to break. The journey of spiritual awakening, especially through the intensity of ego death, isn't about achieving some perfect, static state of enlightenment where problems magically disappear. It's about cultivating a resilient awareness, an open heart, and an unshakable connection to your true self. That part of you, which is aware of the ego, but not trapped by it. It's about learning to live with greater authenticity, compassion, and freedom, even with all the imperfections and challenges of being human. If you recognize yourself in any part of this today, please know this above all, you are not alone. Millions of people are walking this path, often in silence, feeling the same tremors, asking the same questions. This experience, as isolating as it can feel, is a shared human passage towards a deeper reality. This shocking stage is also a sacred stage, one that ultimately leads to profound liberation and a more meaningful connection with yourself and the universe. We sincerely hope this exploration has brought you some clarity, validation, and perhaps a bit of comfort. This path isn't for the faint of heart, but its rewards, a life lived from a place of true authenticity and expanded consciousness, are truly immeasurable. Now, we'd love to hear from you. This is a space for us to share wisdom and support each other. Have you experienced aspects of ego death or intense ego struggles on your spiritual path? What signs resonated most with you? What practices or insights have helped you navigate these challenging times? Please share your experiences and reflections in the comments below. Your story could be the lifeline someone else really needs to hear right now. Let's build a community of understanding around this profound journey. If this video resonated with you, if it offered some value or a new perspective, please give it a like. It helps others who might be searching for this information to find it. And if you'd like to continue exploring the deeper dimensions of spiritual awakening, personal transformation, and conscious living, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that notification bell so you don't miss our future explorations. Thank you for joining us, for your courage to explore these depths. Remember to be gentle with yourself. Trust the unfolding. The dawn always follows the darkest hour.